There you go. Shavua Tov, everyone. Motzei Shabbos Shuva. We have Yom Kippur coming. Bezat Hashem. We'll still Bezat Hashem get to talk about it, but it's bevada something which is kedai to talk about now. Okay, so again, welcome to the Motzei Shabbos Sipurey Baal Shem Tov and Sichos Haran Shir. The Sichos Haran, the Sicha of tonight, is extraordinarily complex. We will read through it. It has to do, with exactly the time of the year. We'll go through it. We'll speak about it. We'll see where it takes us. Hold on just 1 second. Okay, so we're starting from the Maaseh from the Baal Shem Tov, and the story is called Maaseh Mibal B'tochen. Rabbeinu also has a story Mibal B'tochen, and somebody has B'tochen HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's first read the story, and then maybe we can talk about it a little bit. The Baal Shem Tov, he had a revelation in a dream that at a certain place there is a person who is never worried, because he's absolutely certain that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fulfill everything that he needs. So Baal Shem Tov traveled to see who this person. This is a very famous story. Baal Shem Tov went to see this person, and that person accepted him, with open arms, and he, prepared the Suda, Kiyad HaMelech. So that they said in the Suda, Baal Shem Tov asked him, how much do you pay, for renting this, this whatever, your farm, whatever, every year? So he says he pays 3,000 reinish. It's a certain coin that at that time was prevalent. So Baal Shem Tov asked him, and how do you pay this? Do you give some in advance, or you pay the whole thing at once at the end of the year? So the man said at the end of the year, I pay the whole thing at once. Shem Tov continued and asked him, and when is the due date? When do you have to pay your rent? So the man said, in 8 days. The time, in 8 days I have to pay my rent. And at the very end of the year, I have to pay immediately. I can't even wait a minute. I have to pay the whole thing at once. So the Baal Shem Tov continued to ask him, you have all the money available in cash, or at least part of it. 8 days from now is pretty close. And I heard about the feudal lord, the landlord, that he's a tough nut. He's a tough cookie. The person says, no, my pocket might as well have a hole in it for all the money that I have in it. I don't even have anything that is worth any money to sell it or to give it as a mashkan, or to pawn it. Nobody owes me any money, and I don't have anybody to borrow the money from. So the Baal Shem Tov again asks him, so what do you intend to do? 8 days is pretty close, and you don't have a penny. So the person said, with a very calm, easy face, it says, Hashem is with me. What? Hashem doesn't have money? Well, Hashem has plenty of money. I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with me whenever it is that I needed him. And every single year he gave me whatever it is that I needed. And hopefully, with Hashem, this year Hashem will not leave me. Hashem is not going to desert me. Right now, I don't have any any kind of possibility from where to take, except for Rebbeinu Shalom. He owns the money, he owns the silver, he owns the gold, he has everything. Baal Shem Tov wanted to test this person. He wanted to see if he's really trusts HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely, and he really doesn't fear. So he says, still, what are you going to do when the day comes? It's really very close. This is a very cruel master, this landlord. The person says, what are you talking about? It's mefurish, it's a pasuk. Al tiftechu b'nedivim. Tov livtoch b'Shem, livtoch b'Adam. Don't trust in generous people. It's better to trust Hashem than trust people. What is a person that you'll even mention him? A person is today here, tomorrow is in the grave. Hashem Barach is always good for it. Hashem Barach will never leave a poor person in a tzara. So the Baal Shem Tov saw it's a great bitohon. A person didn't say anything. In this Inyan, on his heart he said, I'm going to sit in this house until the year ends, and we'll see what happens. Let's see what goes on. When the time came, 2 days before the due date, the servant of the master came and knocked on the door really strongly, and he came to the house with great tumult and demanded that the Jew prepare all of the money. So the Jew scolded the servant. He says, what are you coming to me, huffing and puffing, like who knows what? The time of paying the rent hasn't come yet. Come back at the time. B'ezrat Hashem, I'll pay you everything that you need. A penny won't be missing. Here comes the last day. Before dawn cracked, the servant is already there. Bursting into the house, great noise. He says, I'm coming from my master. Give the money, Jew. The last day came. Give me all the 3,000 reinish and don't miss a penny. And if not, you asked for it. So again, the Jew, gave him a psak, shouted at him, what are you doing in my house before the crack of dawn? What's going on with you? The time of paying the rent is at the end of the day, mamash before evening. Until that time, you have no permission to come to me and press me for it. Who the heck do you think you are? When the time will come, but the Hashem will pay whatever I need to pay. Right now, out the door you go. So the Baal Shem Tov could not wait any longer. He says, what will Kvoidei do when dusk comes? Now in the last day, you don't even have the part of the money. 3,000 reinish is a lot of money. The person says, still, no problem. I trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's going to send me his Yeshua close. You'll see that the Kadosh Baruch Hu, B'ezrat Hashem, will give me a full Yeshua today. It says, Shus Hashem fine. Boom, it's done. They finished the Suda, all the Birkas Hamazon. They came 3 Jews, merchants, and came to the Baal He says, listen, we're 3 merchants. We heard that you are very important by the mass of the landowner. So we have a request for you. We want to buy that many measures of barley every year, and that measure of wheat every year, and that much oats every year, and but we heard that the master is very difficult, he's very hard, and only you are able to soften his heart. So we're asking from you if you can please, go between us and convince him, and we will pay you. Dmei tivuch, generously. And for the buying, you are willing to pay so much, and for this, the Baal, you're willing to pay so much, and for this, willing to pay so forth and so on. And if the master is really stubborn, we're willing to add a little bit, this much on every single, bushel or whatever you want to call it, big amount. So a person said, I think that you are willing to pay too much. I think that the master will agree to sell you everything, even if you pay less than the price that you said. But I would like to get, for being the go-between, or being the broker, I want to have 3,000 reinish. So the merchants told him, Tafasta merubel tafasta. I mean, you're demanding too much money for the brokerage fee. We are willing to pay you 500 reinish for the brokerage. Even this is much too much. So the person totally refused to get into any kind of haggling regarding the brokerage fee. They added another 500 reinish. Refused. Again, they haggled him. As they say in Yiddish, get gehandelt, get gezult. You really negotiate. You're negotiating well and paying well. So he says, no, shum pari v'ofen. Even if you'll give me 3,000 reinish, less one, I will not take it. So the merchant says, okay, if that's the way, we're going to buy it elsewhere. So the person told him, Bezat Hashem, fugazin tayet, Hashem will help you. They went. The person doesn't move. His face doesn't change. You don't see any kind of worry on his face. Not worry, not regret. He sits and he learns a sefer. Comes mincha. They're standing to daven. When the day came on, the merchant comes, Jew, I want the money. So the Jew says, okay, you stand here and I'll go bring it to you. And he takes his stick and he goes out. Baal Shem Tov goes after him. The person goes to the field, Kodesh Baruch, and Baal Shem Tov goes after him. They see the 3 Seichrim coming in the wagon towards him. When they came, the Seichrim jumped off the wagon and says, okay, we agree. We totally agree, Besedon. Okay. They found out that even if they will pay the brokerage fee of 3,000 reinish, the entire crops that they are buying will still cost them less, vis-a-vis as much as it will cost them in a different place. So the person went with them to the master. He brokered the deal, and the deal was, and everybody was happy, and the person, they paid, and they give the money to the master. Here's the 3,000 reinish. He says, Baal Shem Tov says, I also got my schar, because Baruch Hashem, I learned from this Jew the midah of bitoch. This is obviously something which is worth discussing. And the important inyan about the midah of bitochen is that, as we spoke on Thursday, the midah of azus, of freshness, or chutzpah. So we know that there is azus the kedusha and azus the tumah. There's chutzpah, there's a holy chutzpah and defiled chutzpah. We mentioned that the Zohar says that azus is an authority, that has no crown. In other words, when somebody from the mob comes demanding protection money, he has no authority to do this. So, what gives him the ability to extract money from people? His chutzpah. The fact that he's willing to back this chutzpah, with inflicting injury on somebody else unless they pay him. But by what authority are you coming and demanding this money? Just the fact that I want it, that's it. This is Azus the Sitra Achra. We said, as we're preparing for Yom Kippur, that the thing that enables people to fill their hands, as we learned in this Torah, in Emunah and receive the Emunah from the 7 shepherds, tzaddikim of generation, is Azus. And we said, what is the definition of Azus? Azus is that you want something that you don't deserve. That's why somebody was Azus the Tumah. It says that Avraham Avinu has managed, to basically switch every single Avera, the punishment of every single Avera, with Golus or whatever it is, as long as people shouldn't go to Gehenna. There was one thing he wasn't able to switch, and that's Azus Sitra Acha. Azus the Tumah, Chutzpah the Sitra Acha. You want the entire world just because you want the entire world. So the punishment of this is Gehenna. The Azus the Kedusha is the same thing switched over. We want the Kadosh Baruch Hu to forgive us. Based on what? What are we bringing to the table? So we said the only thing we're bringing to the table is Azus, is chutzpah. I mean, we know we don't deserve it. This is what we bring to the table. The Midas HaBitochen is probably, from all the other Midas, that's the most practical way to practice Azus the Kedusha that there is. Because Bitochen means that you are in need. You are in serious need. And you don't know how on earth are you going to do this. And what comes to your mind is a doubt. What's going to be? Is Hashem going to help me? Hashem is not going to help me. This will help me. This will not help me. What happens if Hashem doesn't help me? So you have all these scenarios in your head of, Hashem helped me all those times before. Yeah, but that was before. Maybe now he won't. This thought is a machshava zara. It's a foreign thought. It's a tumadik thought. We tend to see the midas habitochen as, listen, either you have it or you don't have it. If you have it, you're not worried. If you don't have it, then you are worried. But there's nothing you can do about it. It's like either, like people think, maybe you have a muna. Okay, if you have a muna, you have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. It's either or. Or people think about simcha. Either you are happy or you're not happy. Either you're besimcha or you're not besimcha. But Rabbeinu comes to teach us that this is all wrong. Simcha, emunah, and bitochen are all exercised. Are all things that need to be exercised, is a muscle that needs to be exercised. Yes, you have the basic kernel of Emunah, the basic kernel of Bitochen, and the basic kernel of Simcha. But you need to understand that you have to exercise those muscles so they become stronger, so they become your state of being. When a person is not besimcha, Rabbeinu says, use any means possible, as long as it's clean. Even Mistrust de Shtusa. We said that Mistrust de Shtusa is for the, as we said once before, it's a good time to say it again. I mean, Chaim Aronson, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about, but the rest of the guys will. That once the lion got married, was making a chasana. Well, the lion gets married, obviously everybody comes. All the animals come. And they come, there's a big shindig going on. And here comes the mouse. And the mouse comes, writes out a check, writes out a check and gives it over to the lion. He says, here, brother, mazel tov. So the lion gets upset. What do you mean, since when am I your brother? So the mouse answers, even me too, before I got married, I also was a lion. This is called Mistrust de Shtusa. It's a silly joke. You can start with a silly joke. An Eitzah Tova to anybody who is not happy. You can go to your, to your kitchen closet, take out a broom, and do a waltz. You know how to do a waltz? You take it and you go around. Da di da 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 di da da. Mistrust de Shtusa. This is how you become besimcha. This is how you chase the sadness away. If it's a silly joke, if it's making animal noises, whatever it is, and you make it a besimcha. The same thing is with Emunah and Bitochen. The very same way, when a person has an improper thought entering his head, what is he supposed to do? I can't believe it. No, that's not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is simply shift your mind to a different thought. That's it. That thought which enters your mind and describes to you, man, this is going to be so much fun. You're going to have some... Think a different thought. Don't leave it in your mind. The same thing is the inyan of Bitochen. Yeah, but maybe I'm not doing enough, whatever it is. Okay, if you feel you need to do, go ahead and do. But the machshava of worry, you have to drive away from him. How do you drive away from him? You simply think a different machshava. You have a different thought in your head. In the beginning, you're not going to be very successful. And then little by little, you'll be a bit more successful and more successful and more successful. There's certain people who, who predisposition is, to be very anxious. So for these people, it'll take longer. They need to do a little more work. But the same thing works for the midah of bitochen. Midah of bitochen is something that you work on. But how can you trust when you don't really trust? The answer is you purge away the thought of mistrust. How do you do it? You just don't think that thought. That's it. You can talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu about it, obviously. I have these thoughts coming. I wanted to trust you. I know I don't deserve it. And I trust you. But these thoughts are coming in. I can't control them. They freak me out. Do me a favor, help me out with that. And that's the way that you work on Midas HaBitochen. This is, we learned the Sichos Haran in which Rabbeinu says that it's not you who is being anxious, but there is a certain part in you. There's a thing in you that is anxious. The same thing, there's a thing in you which craves a craving. It's not you. The only thing that you need to do is to realize that that thing comes into your mind, the worrying thought, the anxious thoughts, the sort of lack of a moon, or whatever, the licentious thoughts, whatever, it comes and it wants to convince you that this is who you are. In other words, it wants to take over the ownership of your state of mind. The answer is no, I'm sorry. No, that's not what I want. Like there's the story, in both places, we can see Am Yisrael practicing this. Besides all the different secrets, Seides HaTorah, that are involved in that particular inyan, we have two instances, one in Milchemes HaMolech, and the other one in when the snakes came to punish Am Yisrael. For having discussions on Moshe and Aaron after Korach and the whole thing, and they came blaming Moshe and Moses, you are the one who killed everybody, whatever it is. So Hashem sent him the Nechashim. In these two instances, when the war against Amalek, Moshe Rabbeinu is standing on the hill, and he's lifting his hands up, and his two Talmidim are holding his hands up, and it says when Moshe Rabbeinu holds his hand up, Am Yisrael wins. When he puts his hand down, Am Yisrael loses. There are many Seides HaTorah in this thing, which we're not going to get into. But in the instant, I'll tell you what it is we are going to get into. There is another case where, the case of the snakes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, take a snake, make a snake, and he makes a copper snake, and put it on a high tool. And if somebody gets bitten by a snake, let him look at that snake, and he'll be healed. So, I heard years ago a very precious Baal Tshuva that said a wonderful vort about this, and this is the vort of Bitochen. And he says, Rashi says in both places the same thing. What the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu are waging war. What the snake is the one that gives refuah. In both places Rashi says, but if Am Yisrael lift their hands to their Father in heaven, they get Yeshua. They get saved. So comes the question, so why do you need Moshe Rabbeinu to lift his hands up in the air? Why do you need the copper snake on the top of a stick? Tell Moshe Rabbeinu, listen to Am Yisrael, look up to Kadosh Baruch Hu, trust the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you'll win. Look at the Kadosh Baruch Hu, turn your heart to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you will live. The snakes won't kill you. Why do you need to lift up the hands and to put the snake up? What purpose does that serve? Besides, Al Pi Kabbalah, without Moshe Rabbeinu nothing happens. So forget about that for a minute. And it's a wonderful thing. What is the last thing that a person wants to do in the middle of a battle? Or when he's walking and there are snakes in the grass? What's the last thing that you want to do? The answer is look up. Right? You want to see if somebody's going to hit you with a sword. You want to see if there's a snake around where you are. The last thing that you want to do is look up. So what Rashi is saying is, at that time, so how do you subjugate your heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at that time? By doing the opposite of what it is that your Yetzer is telling you. In the war, you look up. Physically look up. The physical act of looking up, even though your heart says, I don't know what's going to happen to me while I'm looking up. The same thing is when you are with the snakes. You're looking up at the copper snake, even though you know maybe there are snakes around you. The technical looking up, overcoming your natural tendency to look down, this is how you're lifting your heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no way to look up in the middle of the war or where you're stepping with our snakes without subjugating your heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the act of subjugation of your heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The looking up even though you don't want to. Same thing works for the midah of bitachon. You want to worry about that. You want to worry what's going to be, whatever it is. The technical action of removing that thought of worry and taking about I trust you and thinking about something else. This will acquire you the midah of bitachon. This is especially important, obviously, now. We are coming to Yom Kippur, Mr. Shem. What do we bring to the table? Every person has, I don't know, a little here, a little there, but it's Kodesh Baruch Hu. We know Itzuma Shel Yom Echapa, the day itself brings a kapara. The fact that I deserve it or don't deserve it has nothing to do with it. Have bitachon in Kodesh Baruch Hu, the entire Sesame Tshuva is with that. You know, you come on Rosh Hashanah, that you're absolutely certain Kodesh Baruch Hu will give you a good year. How? You don't deserve it. That's bitachon. So this is why. What works? You know, how does bitachon actually work? I really don't deserve it. Why would the Kodesh Baruch Hu help me when I don't deserve it? So one of the answers that Chachamim give is because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is a melech. Kodesh Baruch Hu is a king. And if you trust the king, it doesn't befit the king not to help you. Because he knows that he is hidden. We know that. And you still trust him? You know, there's a story, a true story that happened with one of the guys that usually comes to the shur. He used to live in Lakewood, and there was a Ger Tzedek who was actually a prince, an African prince. You know, bona fide prince with, with all the certificates, the whole thing. His father was a king. And he is the son, he's the prince, and he became a Jew. So, one day, his father comes to visit him. His father, the king, comes to visit him. So, this man, of course, our friend here, made a bar mitzvah. He was made a bar mitzvah, or a friend of his made a bar mitzvah. Made a bar mitzvah. So he invited the prince. He was one of his friends. So the prince asked him, is it okay that I bring my father? His father obviously is not Jewish. So he says, of course, bring your father. So the prince comes together with his father, and his father had great hanah, bar mitzvah, beautiful, whatever it is. And he gives him an envelope with a check. And after, everybody went away, he opens up the envelope. It's a check for $10,000. Now, And that was many years ago, when $10,000 was $10,000. It's not like today. So this person didn't know what to do. $10,000 is not a bar mitzvah gift, man. You definitely make a chassan on $10,000. At those times, bevadai. What is it? $10,000. You give $18, $36. If you're a wealthy man, you give $100. It's just like $10,000. So he went to the prince, and he told him, I really don't know what to do about this. Here's the check. Your father gave me a check of $10,000. I don't know, maybe it's a mistake. Maybe I don't know what to do. So the prince laughed. And he said, you don't understand, do you? He says, what? He says, he's a king. He gave you $10,000 not because you deserve $10,000. He gave it $10,000 because he's a king. It would be a busha for a king to give less than $10,000. It's not about you, it's about him. Same thing is bitachon. It'll be a busha for the Kodesh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol not to help you when you trust him. Because he's a king. He's not an accountant. Okay, you did this, I did that, you did this. That's fine. But now you trust the Kodesh Baruch Hu just because you trust him. He's a king. It doesn't befit him to give less than $10,000. It doesn't befit him not to help you. And whatever it is that you need. If you trust him. And your trust is blind. You make yourself blind. Well, this is the Sicha of Sipurey Baal Shem Tov. I would like to read, B'Yeshuschem, the Sicha of the day. Sichos Haran, and the main reason why, actually maybe this is something which is more matim for next week, as a preparation for Sichos, because this is actually it has to do with this week as well, because there's what it is that we can do this week in order to make this thing happen. So we'll read it, Mizat Hashem, maybe next week we'll talk about it again. Here we go. We're talking about 87. Lefi b'chines hayomim noiraim, in accordance with what these days of awe really are. Roi shiel esrag noir. It is befitting that we should have a beautiful esrog. As the people says, kol nar, people say every boy, yesh lo isha no, has a beautiful woman. Va'esrog ubchinas isha. The esrog is an aspect of isha, as the malchus. Como shekosav bazoya she'esrog ubchinas kulach yafa rayosi umum en bach. And it says in the Zohar that the esrog is, that's what Shlomo Melech says, you are my bride, you're totally beautiful and there's no blemish in you. That's why we have to be makbid. The esrog shouldn't have any blemish. This is the hodra of the esrog, and so forth and so on. But Mo'min Noraim, in the days of awe, Israel b'chinas nar. The Am Yisrael, they are a boy. They're not yet fully formed. Kiaz, what is b'chinas nar? What is the thing that typifies a nar? B'chinas v'nei nar boicher. This is said about Moshe Rabbeinu. A nar, a kid. The thing that typifies a kid is when a kid feels sorry, he cries. And it says v'nei nar boicher. It says in Shmos miyad, immediately. What's the result? Vatachmal olav. That she had rachmanis for him. And he says in the Tikkun, the minute is nar boicher, the minute you're a boy and you cry, immediately you elicit the rachmanis above. It says in Tikkunim. That's why it's befitting that Am Yisrael will have an esrog noah, have a beautiful esrog. And anybody who cries more, the more you cry, he more becomes into the essence of being a crying kid, a nar boicher. So the minute he becomes a Na Boicha, immediately the more he deserves to have a more beautiful esrog. This is what the people say, that every nar, every youth has a beautiful woman. Now Rabbeinu goes deeper, and he says you have to understand that the main existence of the seichel, of the mental faculties, is from the meach, from the marrow, and the marrow takes the moach. I'm sorry, the brain. The brain actually receives from the marrow and the bones, which in itself is being watered by the moisture and the oils of the body. It says an e of a moach am tzmois of yeshuka, and the marrow of his bones will be watered. By the different moistures, the liquids, and of the body, and the oils of the body, the marrow of the bones is being watered. This is the thing that enables the seichel to continue to exist, because the main existence of a person's mental faculties is through the juices and the oils of the body, as it says in different places. And that's why anybody who is a nar means he's not fully developed. His mental faculties are not perfected yet. He's not complete. So his mind, his moyach, is still in store in the marrow of the bones. Because his mind does not extract from the raw material, which is the marrow of the bones, to create a seichel from it. That's why his brain does not come to full fruition. It's not mature. So since that, it means that the moach is still in the bones. Yeah, and therefore. And that's why his mate, his bride, that was taken from the bones. His bones are juicy. They are in their prime. The moach still wasn't taken out. So his bride that was taken from the bones, it says, he took one of his ribs, one of his bones. A woman comes from his bones. And because, the storage is still in the bones, she gets a full measure of it. This abundance of moach that is in his bones goes to her. But this is where she's taken from. That's why his wife is beautiful, his mate is beautiful, because the main beauty comes from the moach and the chokhmah. That's why she's beautiful, because the abundance of the moach in the bones of somebody whose brain is not totally mature. So in the moach mine, in the bones, there's still a lot of moach. That brings, the wife, the malchus, to be beautiful. And as Rabbeinu says, and as we said before, B'kedusha, this is the soid, the secret of the kavanos of the shaking of the lulav, as that the roots of the das are being pulled down to the esrog. He says, look at the kavanos, shara kavanos of the sukkah. The secret of the esrog and the lulav. And he says, and to explain this a little bit, the main kavana is to bring down to the esrog, because the esrog is the malchus. That's the moichin in the body. What do you mean the moichin in the body? This is the chasadim, the mercies that exist in the 6 directions of the Zer Anpin. Zer Anpin is a small face. It's a nar. It's a boy. Zer Anpin is the 6 spheres: Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. They're the 6 directions: up, down, left, right, forwards, and backwards. That's the build of the sukkah. And what you do is when we shake the lulav, we'll have up and down and left and forward, whatever, it's all the 6 directions. This is the Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. And in each and every direction, the edge of the direction, there is Chasodim, which it receives from the sphere above, the sphere of the Das. And it's not possible to shine it to the Esrog, to the Malchus. That's the aim of everything, is the Malchus. The Kodesh Baruch Hu should be the Melech. It's not possible to bring the light, to shine the light of the Chasodim to the Esrog. Ela kshemekablim me'ora mishosha moichin hainu shosha chasodim shebadas. There's no way that you can shine directly to the Esrog unless you go through these 6 directions, which are the roots of the Chasodim in the Das. That's the secret of the shaking. So you see that the main enlightening of the Esrog, which is Malchus, Prinas Malchus, is when there is an abundance of Moichin, that of Seichel, that shines in the 6 Ktsovis, in the 6 directions, that is pulled up from the Moichin in the head, the Das which is in the head. The Moichin are, in other words, there's an abundance of Das in the 6 Ktsovis in the Zer Anpin. Zer Anpin is the boy. This is Na Boicha. You know, we have Arich Anpin, that's the mature. We have Zer Anpin, that is us, Na Boicha, that you cry. He says, Rak Shamu Na Mamash. Over there is Mamash a boy. And his moyach is still, concealed in his bones that didn't go to the moyach. And here, this is by a regular place. But here we're talking about B'Kedusha, the illumination, shining up the Esrog, is through when you deliberately mamshich the ha'or v'moichin in the head into the body. And this is how it goes to the Esrog. And look well into the Kavanas, and you'll understand. The Sukkah is Kinar Yisrael v'Aveu. And the Shea said, because Israel is a boy, is a lad, and I love him. And Ahava is Yamin, love is Yamin. This is the embrace of the right side. This is Sukkah, which becomes Nar Yisrael, a crying boy, as we said before. What can be said about this is that we're moishich the ha'ara of the moichin into the B'chinas Esrog. I'm sorry, into the 6 directions. In other words, we don't get into Yom Kippur with the seichel. We don't get into Yom Kippur with, I understand, I know how to make the kavanos and this and Kippur and this and that. No. You become a lad. You have no seichel. You drive the seichel away. You just beg a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you cry to him because you know you don't deserve. You are taking the middle of bitochon. You are basically taking the seichel away. You're just a lad. You're just a little boy, a crying boy. That brings all the merchen from the das. That will shine to the Esrog. Bezat Hashem, you'll have a beautiful Esrog. Bezat Hashem, up to now, Mirs Hashem, Monday night, we will have Sipurey Maisis, maybe a shtickle achona for Yom Kippur, and everything that we do is achona to Yom Kippur. So I want to wish you, Bezat Hashem, a Gmar Simetova, and a